get it wouldn't fit. I'm not a man with a pocket. So, you know, just for those designers, need to put this. It's not suitable for women. Right. How do we, oh, here we go.
Oh, I think just use the buttons, just the buttons.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to come and speak tonight. It's a real honour and privilege in front of a very esteemed audience, so I'm very thrilled to be here. So my talk is going to be about practical tips. There is a lot of advice around at the moment in regards to how to enhance gender diversity. While each has its merit, I'm sure, and I haven't read any of these books, but I've read others. I'm going to provide tips from the perspective of a female engineer in the water sector. But a bit about me before I start. So I'm an environmental engineer. I graduated in 1994, which seems like far too long ago. It was the first year ever of the environmental engineering degree at RMIT. And at that point it was 50% women in an engineering degree, but as time went on, some of the females dropped away. I have nearly 20 years experience, about 15 years in the water sector, and I'm currently in my last subject, fingers crossed that I passed, studying for a graduate diploma in environmental law. I've recently just moved to Ballarat, so we chose in the middle of July, which is, you know, a really smart move to move to Ballarat, with my family, my husband and my two boys who are aged 5 and 8. Decided to move from South East Water and take up a role with Central Highlands Water and try country life. And so far we're loving it, even though it's freezing. It wasn't today though, and you should have seen the smiles on people's faces in Ballarat. It was pretty nice. So many of my tips will be drawn from my personal experience and recent roles in the water sector. Go down. There's lots of buttons. Okay, right. Once upon a time, there was a little girl. Oh, that other photo didn't. There we go. Her hero was Wonder Woman. And this is a photo of that little girl in prep wearing her Wonder Woman badge. And this little girl tried her best at everything. My sisters will kill me for this, I know. She grew up with 2 strong-willed sisters, and one is now an anaesthetist and another is a teaching aide. And with the support of this little girl's mother and father, she strongly believed that she could, with hard work and doing her best, as well as playing to her talents, she could achieve anything in her chosen career as an engineer. However, one thing she noticed during her working life was the lack of female role models that she could learn from and aspire to be like. Senior female engineers and executives were certainly few and far between, unless they were in HR. As her career continued, and this actually is a photo of senior executives Googled and noticed the no gender equity there. As her career continued, she noticed that wherever she worked, the numbers of women in senior management was generally less than 20%. And what was worse, that no one seemed to care. Didn't seem to matter to anyone. But still aspiring to be the best she could be and working to achieve her goal as a senior manager in the water sector, she really began to wonder how she was going to achieve her career aspirations in the water sector. Was she going to leave? Was she going to be one of the statistic that said, I've had enough, I'm walking away? She really began to what she had to do, taking on all this advice that was seemingly endless. Did she have to work harder to fit into a male-dominated world? Did she have to become invisible? Did she have to become one of the boys? Did she have to lean in? Did she have to lean out? Did she have to become more assertive, less assertive, more confident, less outspoken? Lead or follow? Who knew? I'll tell you what she chose to do, and that was just to do something, and that kind of carries on from the mantra of yourself, Lindsay. And if you haven't worked it out yet, I was that little girl, and that little girl, still am, with big dreams and big aspirations, and this was my story. So here's what I chose to do. I chose to stop seeing gender diversity as everybody else's problem. I stopped trying to point the finger of blame that I was starting to go down the path of doing. And in my own language and behaviours, I could see myself taking on that perception. So I chose to become part of the solution. And so based on my experiences, here are some of the learnings that I have that I'm going to share with you tonight. So this is offering more grassroots action for women in their current roles and how organisations may work to encourage women who are in their organisations already to stay. So I'm focusing on 3 themes for enhancing diversity. And these 3 themes I think are important to encourage gender diversity in your business. And these themes I think will support current female employees and hopefully work to attract, retain and encourage future employees as well. So the first theme is connect. So like what was created at South East Water as a Women in Science and Engineering group, I really consider that creating a forum or a network where women can connect with each other within the business is really important. And this is really important because it enables women to support each other. And it enables women to feel less isolated and more connected. Because if you're working in a very male-dominated area and you can't hear and see the perspectives of others, it can become very isolating, it can become very overwhelming. And this forum or network needs to include men in the conversations. This is not just a women's issue. And this is not a network of women who are about to point the finger of blame. It's not an us and them mentality. This group could create topics of interest to include men in the conversation, things like work-life balance or parenting or just general people topics, not just women or men. And this can really encourage a discussion between women and men about why gender diversity is important or why it's not being achieved. And this network or forum of women can start to encourage real conversations about the culture, which I'll talk about a bit more later on. Now, this group is also important that enables women to share their experiences with each other. And it can, especially if an informal space is created for women to share their conversations and experiences. And from personal experiences, the experiences of many different women will not all be positive and they will not all be negative. They will be very individual. Each person will bring their own experience. Some women will be trying to blend in, to be invisible, to hold on to their part-time role. We'll be trying to fit in. We'll be trying to protect their current relationships with their managers, who are likely going to be men if they're in an engineering environment. They might not want this group to do anything, might not want them to rock the boat, to push for anything, because they're going to be quite protective of what they already have. Others in the group may be very negative. They might be cynical, and this is because after years of experiencing discrimination or inequality, they've been worn down. And others may be willing to advance the cause, may be willing to step up and really speak out. But allowing all women within an organisation to hear these different perspectives and understand different women's experiences is what is so helpful. But know that because of these different perspectives and different experiences, that sometimes it can create a feeling of fear. And fear can split a group or it can bring a group closer together. Another area for women to share their experiences is particularly in the area of performance management. From my experience, many women have, especially with male managers, experienced very generic performance management that doesn't enable them to really focus on specific skills that will help them to move to where they want to move to. And there's generally not enough advice about women to what do I do if I'm in that situation? How do I call this out? So having a group that can kick around some ideas and really share their experiences is again a really important idea. And thirdly, I think another key point is pairing the more experienced female staff with the more junior female staff to provide that friendly ear, to provide that level of support for them to ring up. And I've been on the receiving end of a number of these phone calls and said, can you help me with this issue? And that just gives a younger person that level of confidence that they may well need to step up in their career. So the second area is around support. So while a women's network or group is a great idea, it won't get very far if the organisation doesn't support it and it's not resourced. Programs within a network will not run themselves. Companies really need to be able to demonstrate their support for diversity. And one really easy way to do this is to show them the money. And this can help women create their own well-defined, well-scoped program that meets their needs. And it might be around professional development. It might be around soft skills development. It might be about bringing a guest speaker in. It might be about broader networking events. But it needs to be funded. Otherwise, women are going to feel like it's not really worth it. Secondly, in the support theme, can't stress enough, but really understand what the real challenges are within your organisation. Listen to what people are telling you. Do you really know what the culture is in your organisation? Do you really know the experiences of some of the women and what they have experienced on a day-to-day or even on a casual basis? So while you may think that the policies are currently in place to support anti-bullying or recruitment practices that are on gender parity, the culture may not actually support women to use these policies and to speak out and to call out inappropriate behaviour. So I can't encourage enough for people in this room to seek out real conversations and get real feedback from staff on what they are actually experiencing. Because what you hear in a survey and what you hear in a personal conversation will be two very separate things from my experience. And this can be a real challenge, but unless, this is the crux of it for me, unless there is a committed effort to really change and enhance the culture, then all these other policies and initiatives will fall by the wayside. And be transparent with information. We talk about setting targets for diversity. We talk about other initiatives around the pay gap. I mean, we're talking today, Magella, about Lisa Wilkinson. She's all over the news. I think she's a legend. The numbers of part-time staff. I think it's so important that everybody sees these numbers. They might not be nice, but how can you change it unless everybody is aware of what they're trying to change? And seek out opinions from men and women about any new policies, particularly around diversity, that will help you achieve your diversity goals. And then the most important thing is to report back on the progress of how you're going. Don't just say, well, we're aiming for this, and then that's what you don't hear anything ever again. And really importantly is try to prevent the roller coaster cycle of the peak and trough activities that support gender diversity. I've seen it a number of times in various organisations. It's flavour of the month because currently Lisa Neville has set a target, basically. How long will that last? I've seen it before. I've seen the cycles. Unless there's a committed, concerted, long-term effort around diversity with reporting back regularly on performance, cynicism of staff will only escalate, and there'll be a lack of trust and erosion of trust, particularly with members of the human resources team. And thirdly, it's about inspiring. Even out the playing field, I think is a key initiative. While at Southeast Water, there was a program developed to support and partner with schools and universities that offer work experience to women to come and work in the organisation, for staff to attend career fairs and talk about their careers, and offer scholarships and trainees to students. And again, on the performance management side, playing fields can be levelled out through having a robust performance management system where people are educated and trained about it. I think it's also very important to provide the role models, men and women. I know as I didn't have many role models, and I think Lucia, honestly, is just one of my main role models throughout my career. But women are few and far between, especially female engineers in executive or board roles. But men need to be seen as role models too. I'd love to be able to call out, various men more regularly that I know that they are supportive and that they will themselves call out behaviours if they aren't appropriate. And pay it forward. Play your part in gender diversity. I think staying positive, being encouraging and supporting others to get to the point of being in a leadership role, facilitating the success of others is super important. Try to be a cultural role model. So just quickly, I know I'm getting the wind up. My organisation, I've only been for 3 months, but have created a diversity inclusion strategy. There's a number of initiatives that are underway. At 2016, Central Highlands Water did a measurement of staff versus the population. So in the Ballarat and broader area, there's 50-50 men and women, which is about normal. But in Central Highlands Water itself, it was only 38% women. So there's a commitment to lift this to 50-50. There's a commitment particularly around executive roles and generally creating pay parity and profiling women in leadership roles. The key for me, and sorry, this will be updated as well this year with the creation of a diversity focus group, which I hope to be part of. The thing is for me now, I lead a team of 20 and there's only 3 women in my team and I'm one of them. So what am I going to do about gender diversity? These are people mostly in operational roles, males in middle to senior, who've been in their roles for 20, 30, one person's 36 years. So this is a real challenge for me, but something that I'll really take on with gusto. My last slide. We each have a role to play in enhancing gender diversity, and going back to the Wonder Woman theme, because I still like Wonder Woman, let's take some advice from the woman herself and use our individual powers to make a difference. So remember, no one is you, and that is your power. So if you sit here tonight and think about what is your power and how can you utilise that for good, not evil, in enhancing gender diversity. Thank you.